Hi, this is Shannon Port, and I welcome you to the Art of the Feminine podcast. It's good to be back again. I was gone for a while, and I just made my first video in a while for the Lionsgate portal, and so I'm back again pretty soon after, and we are going to be talking about a very big event that is happening in the world and really focusing energies in the United States, and that is the new moon total solar eclipse in Leo happening on August 21st. And so today I'm streaming live on August 17th, and I did not announce the stream, as I often don't. But if you didn't have a chance to join it as a live stream, please, if you get to see it after the fact, please make sure to leave all of your comments in the comment section, any questions, any comments, and please let me know what you're doing for the eclipse, or if there's anything that you noticed during the eclipse or leading up to the eclipse. And so the title for this video is Transmuting the Sexual Force into Love, Wisdom, and Power. Transmuting the sexual force into love, wisdom, and power. And so Leo is the secret power. The sign of Leo in the archetypes is the secret power. And there's been a lot going on in Leo, and we're going to talk about it. And there's so much to say. And so before we get started, I have two announcements. I want to say that I have some new things coming on the Art of the Feminine channel and the Art of the Feminine platform, and I will be announcing them after the eclipse. And as Mercury goes direct, I will probably start to announce it around the beginning of September, but I'm going to be offering something new here, which I'm really excited about. It's for those who have no interest in doing anything like a 7-week course or the 3-month private mentoring that I do in the Divine Feminine Wisdom. This will be an opportunity to partake in something that's a little bit more accessible and less of a time commitment. And so I will be announcing that soon. And speaking of the mentoring, it's already fall. And so I'm getting ready to start another 3-month round of mentoring. I do mentoring in the Divine Feminine Wisdom, and it is based on all the archetypal wisdom that we talk about here in these videos and in all the podcasts that I do. I've done hundreds of hours of podcasts and videos on this archetypal wisdom. But what we do is we take the wisdom, all of the wisdom that comes in on this platform, all of the light body tantra teachings on sexuality, healing sexuality, and the goddess sexuality teachings, all of the alchemy of the goddess teachings, all of the archetypal wisdom, as well as the inner mystery school of divine love, and all the work I've done in light body yoga. There's so much, but it all comes into that 3 months. And so it's just really a download, and it's a way to apply the wisdom in your life. And so if you are interested in that, just give me an email, send an email. You can find my email address on artofthefeminine.com, or you can find me on Facebook at Art of the Feminine. And so we will get started on all the things that we have to talk about today. So we'll start by saying, I'll just let you know where we're going to go. I have to admit, there's a lot of information that came in. As if you saw my last video, you saw that I was saying that I would like to start making videos that are a bit shorter. I've been making videos around an hour. I wasn't able to do that very successfully last time. Another video that's a bit longer as well, because there's so much going on, and I want to cover as much as we can today. It's fun to talk about, and this is one of the most empowering times to be alive on this planet, and so there's just a lot to share. I like to stream it in, but I have notes all over the place because all morning the information just won't stop flowing in, and so I will do a little bit of just speaking about it, and then a little bit of maybe going through my notes to see if there's anything else we can add to it. And so we're going to take a look at what's been going on in Leo and why Leo is called the secret power. First of all, talking about sexuality wasn't a whole nother idea prepared for this podcast about this total solar eclipse that we have coming at 28 degrees Leo on the 21st of August. But as I started working with the wisdom and started letting it come through, I was shown in kind of a roundabout way until it really came in strong that this eclipse is really about healing the sexual force in the collective human race. If any of you who have followed my work know that that's a huge part of what I write about, what I speak about, and the courses I teach on are all the esoteric and metaphysical teachings of the divine feminine and sexuality. And so as I was working, I started to see that with Leo and with this grand fire trine that we have with Lilith conjunct Saturn in Sagittarius and Eris very close to Uranus and Aries. And then we have the sun and the moon in Leo with Mars very close to the sun and the moon. And the North Node there, we have this profound energy. A trine is like a prism. It makes a triangle and it allows for the light to come through and be shown on the screen. And so this grand fire trine is really bringing in an opportunity for us to see there's a lot of divine feminine energy in this eclipse. There's a lot of alchemy in this eclipse because, as you know, and I've talked about a lot before, Leo is a sign of alchemy. It's the sign of the heart. It's the sign of the sun. And this is a solar eclipse taking place in Leo, in the sign of the sun. It's the sign where it's the sign of the solar feminine as well, and especially with Venus getting ready to transit Leo right after the eclipse. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about what is actually going. So the way it came in was the message that it's time to not outsource our power to the external and to the illusion. Leo as an archetype also represents the power of suggestion, the secret power, which is the one force. It represents the power of the light and the power of the light as it works through us to create on the screen of consciousness, which is our world and which is our reality. And so, as I promised in the last video as well, I'm going to give some exercises to really connect with the power of that light of the sun within, so that we can really truly know what it is to be aligned with the power of what is known as the great I am, the spirit. But that's what this fire trine is about. It's about connecting with the power of the spirit. In the metaphysical teachings, the triangle represents spirit and the square represents matter. When we look at a pentagram or a pentagon with the triangle over the square, it represents spirit ruling over matter. And it represents the light of reason and the light of consciousness ruling over all of the elemental forces of this world. We live in a 3D elemental world where a lot of the energy that we're dealing with is coming from below, is coming from the darker forces. And let's just take it in a neutral way, not talking about dark as in evil, but dark as in pulling us away from life. The lower down we get, the stronger the pull away from awakening the power of the heart. When we get trapped in the elemental forces, that's when we see a real degeneration of sexuality, a misuse of sexuality, a way of controlling others through sexuality and through the carnal desires. And so, does that sound familiar? We've got a lot of that happening in our world right now, and it's everywhere. But it's happening. This is how it fits in with Leo. It's happening through the desire force and through the very subtle subconscious law of suggestion. Law of suggestion also goes along with this archetype of Leo. And so let's just, I've got so much more to say on it, but let's just break into the fire trine, talk a little bit about it, and then see where we go from there. So so this solar eclipse, total solar eclipse in Leo. We've had 2 new moons in Leo this cycle, and we also had the Lionsgate portal. And I put a link to the Lionsgate portal video in the description box below, as well as I did a really detailed video on the archetype of Leo. So I linked those 2 videos in the description box if you want to bring in some more of the wisdom and the knowledge around this archetype. Okay, so we'll look at the fire trine. So let's start with Aries. So Aries, because we have something so exact, we have Uranus in Aries at 28 degrees. Conjunct Eris, the dwarf planet Eris, which is planet of war. She's a sister of Mars, and she represents a strong divine feminine energy of fighting for what's right, of fighting for basic rights, of fighting for the rights of the feminine. She, in some ways, she doesn't have a great reputation, but at her core, at her primal essence, she represents the good fight and the fight for what is right. And so she's conjunct Uranus. Uranus is trining the sun and the moon exact at this eclipse. And so Uranus in Aries, first we'll talk about the archetype of Aries is the archetype of I am. It's the archetype of the warrior, the spiritual warrior. It's the archetype of the birth of the Christ in the world of form. So the Christic force, the force of the soul, as it's that divine spark birthed into matter, birthed onto the wheel, becomes I am. I am, and I go forward in this 3D world to fight the good fight, to learn what I can learn, and to acquire knowledge and to acquire vision. The archetype for Aries in the sacred archetypes is the emperor, and the emperor represents vision. The emperor represents the ability to see and the ability to make structure out of form. The emperor is key 4, and it represents the square. So it represents how that divine, noble, masculine energy is able to have vision, use the light of consciousness. The sun is exalted in Aries, and the sun rules vision in the archetype of the emperor. The emperor is Aries. And so it represents the ability for the divine spark to come into matter and to make sense out of matter and to thrive in matter. So we have the great I am consciousness of Aries with Uranus. Uranus is the fool, and it's the divine mind. It's brilliance. It's revolution through genius. It's revolution really through the light of the sun, the light of the higher consciousness of the higher mental capacities of the masculine. And so that there's a lot of masculine energies in Aries. It's the higher vision. We have the ego represents the lower mind in this world. And so when we're talking about Aries in its light side, we always have the light side and the shadow. We're talking about consciousness, the ability to see with the light of the sun, to project the light of the inner sun onto the screen so that we can see. Uranus also represents the limitless light, that the substance of everything that is the limitless light. So it's the higher mind. It's trining this sun and moon at this eclipse. That is encouraging us to use our power. What kept coming through is that we've outsourced our power. We've handed over our power to an external force of manipulation, meaning, and not to just go so negative, but just to be really practical in how we look at it. In this world, there's a saying that we fell through the 5. We fell through the 5 senses. Our 5 senses brought us into carnal desire. It brought us into the version of sexuality that wants to eat and that wants to feed off other human beings. Now, sexuality is one of the highest, most divine forces and powers that we have, and we're absolutely meant to merge with it, we're meant to understand it with the higher wisdom. And we're meant to know how we can use it rather than be used by it. In this world, it's a very tricky situation not to be fully used and taken over by the sexual power. It's so strong. In one deck I'm thinking of, in this the archetype strength is actually called lust, because Leo rules lust and desire. It's the fifth house. Leo, where the solar eclipse is taking place, it's the fifth house. The fifth house, which is 5. So now we're working as we do, as we do with the archetypal wisdom, we're working with the law of correspondence, which will tell us the story. Leo is the fifth house. 5 corresponds to the 5 senses, means our desire force, our lust, and how we consume, create. Our fertility is governed by these 5 senses and how we identify with them. So in Leo, we also have Mars. Mars is the tower in the sacred archetypes. It's the power, it's the force of the Holy Spirit, really, in the divine archetypes. But Mars is the sexual force, it's the flaming fire of sexuality. And Mars is there. And Mars is trining Eris and Lilith. Lilith and Saturn will be at 21 degrees Sagittarius. We're going to get to that in a moment. Eris is at 23 degrees in Uranus, this divine feminine energy of the feminine warrior. She's trining Mars. Mars is in Leo, so we've got such trine energy happening. It's quite significant. Put it this way: this is the first eclipse, total solar eclipse, to come through the US in 99 years. The United States is a very big player on the world stage right now. The energies of this eclipse are going to have a huge effect on the collective soul, the group soul of America, of the United States, and will make shifts in our consciousness in the here in where I am in the US, in ways that we are going to see play out for quite some time to come. We've already been seeing things happen in this buildup. We're in the age of Aquarius now, and now this axis of the eclipses is in Aquarius and Leo. This particular eclipse is a North Node new moon solar eclipse, so it's accentuating the area that we are meant to really develop and cultivate at this time. The sun is being eclipsed in its own sign in Leo, and it's, there's a lot here. So also, I just heard, and I looked up the chart as well, that the president of the United States, Donald Trump, has his ascendant conjunct the eclipse. He has his ascendant conjunct at 29 degrees Leo, conjunct this eclipse. Now, I know a lot about this because my ascendant is also conjunct this eclipse. And so the eclipse for me is actually, this one is quite personal because it's hitting me it's hitting my sun, my moon, my Neptune, and my ascendant exact. And so that means, as he is the ruler of this platform right now, he is the archetype governing this platform right now, and we know that there's energies behind that he's acting as the ruling the ruling emperor of the US right now, but there's other energies behind it. But so that shows alone there's going to be some energies that affect the very man that is in charge, so to speak. So let's look at Sagittarius. Then we have the eclipse itself is trining the galactic core. The galactic core is the womb of the great cosmic, the great mother, the divine mother. It's the energy of her heart and her womb, and it's where she births from. It's where she gives us those that flow and that stream of the divine wisdom, the higher understanding, and it's the quintessence light that comes into our reality. It's step down until we can digest it and integrate it. The galactic core is trining both Uranus and the sun and the moon, where the eclipse is taking place. Um, um, so this has been happening for a while too. Uranus has been transiting that spot. Saturn has been transiting the galactic core, going over it, and is now very close at 21 degrees, conjunct Lilith or Lilith, the black moon, and we're going to talk about that symbolism because it's amazing. It's amazing what's really happening here. The amount of the goddess energy, which represents love and birthing and healing on all levels. And there's divine sacred union happening between Leo, between Venus, between the masculine force, between the feminine force. All of these forces are here in this grand fire trine. So all right, so I made some notes about it just to see what else I want to say about it. So we have the message here is to transmute the sexual force. With Lilith conjunct Saturn, Lilith, we'll talk a little bit about her mythology. There's different, there's many different layers to her mythology, and there's different versions. I'm going to talk about one or two of those. But with Lilith conjunct Saturn at the galactic core, trining the eclipse, trining Mars, trining Eris, in there with Uranus, the sun and the moon. Black Moon Lilith represents the wounded sexual force of both the feminine and the masculine. It represents the delusional states, false hypnotic states that can come through drugs or through manipulation. She represents the struggle for power. And she represents really the dark power within us that we need to integrate and assimilate in order to be whole. And so she is here and speaking loud and clear at this total solar eclipse in Leo. She's trining Mars and she's conjunct Saturn. And moving towards the galactic core with Saturn. Saturn's retrograde right now, but we'll be moving back over the galactic core after the eclipse. So this is a real opportunity for us to take a look at what's going on inside us. Take a look at where we've abandoned our own raw power, our instinctual power, and our animalistic power, how we need that force. She's one of the divine feminine forces that we absolutely need. Her and Eve have to be working together. We need the purity and we need the raw power of the dark within us. So now a little bit about Lilith and her mythology. In one of the, and there's many, so I'm going to give this version to point something out. But we recognize that Lilith is to be empowered, that she is absolutely part of the divine feminine, and she's a key player in this era. She's a really big player. So, but in one of the stories about Adam wanting to rule over Lilith or govern her or be on top while engaged in the sexual act, there's the story of Adam wanting to be on top and Lilith saying, no, I won't be underneath you. And then Adam not having it and Lilith taking off in a rage and leaving. And there's many versions of it, but then becoming the mother of the demonic kingdom. I want to point out one of the metaphors for this mythology. This is one because there's many of the different versions that are really about the empowering of the divine feminine, but part of the meaning of that is in this archetype, in this archetypal drama, Adam represented the light of consciousness. It represents the light of reason, the reason of the higher mind, both the male and female partake of that reason of the Adam archetype. It becomes ultimately it's the Adam Kadmon, and it's the energy of the great star of light that is the divine child that represents both daughter and son of the divine mother and father. Um, Lilith or Lily in this version represents the untamed wild sexual force. And so it represents sexuality in this dimension that we have, when sexuality, especially in human nature, is it's a beautiful and powerful thing. And so I have to watch my words, but at the same time I want to bring this in a clear way. In this paradigm that we are in, and in this third dimensional world that we're in, things tend to degenerate when they're not attached to the heart. And so all good things that are tasty and good, whether it's, all of the things, the physical, tangible senses of the carnal desires, the pleasures of the five senses, if they aren't attached to the heart and to the light of divine reason, over time they degenerate and they pull us down, and they teach us awful, painful lessons of what it is to lose our power and fall into the depths of the hell realms, un out of control and not in charge of our own power. That's what happens. We lose our own power when we degenerate in this area, and we fall. We become used for our soul power, our soul light. So in this particular version that we're talking about, it represented Adam saying, no, I want to keep, he was talking about himself, his own body in this archetype. I want to keep my sexuality, but I want to have light of reason govern over it. That represents the pentagram with we're getting into some of the esoteric teachings with the point facing upwards. That is the triangle over the square. And so it represented the human need in order to stay connected to source, to maintain the light of discernment and the light of reason in order to make good choices and to use our power and to know our power in this case. So in this case, they battled it out because in Lilith, in this one was not having it. She's like, no, this is going to be all about pleasure, sex, erotica, and all the things that we so love in this world. But we're going to have those things in this without any discernment. So what happens? So now we also know we have the total opposite myth where where it represents the fall into the patriarchy, where the male energy really did overtake the feminine energy and dominate the beautiful power of the feminine sexuality, which exists in all of us, both men and women alike. But I wanted to point out that other one because it's very potent for what we're talking about. So here Lilith being with Saturn and being at the galactic core at this time really represents a regeneration of her power, that no, we don't need to throw out sexual power. We don't need to be Puritans. We don't need to absolve or abstain from it altogether, but we each need to understand how it best works for us in our own life, and how we can make sure that we are using it in a way that brings us into, I mean, the sexual power alone can create the fountain of youth. Sexuality and the sexual force is it's the Kundalini force. Mars in key 16, that's why we say Mars is the sexual desire. It's also the Holy Spirit, because 16 in the archetypes is the power, the lightning bolt of the mother spirit. Mars brings in the power of the Holy Spirit, and it happens through the Kundalini fire. All of this is here at this grand fire trine, at this total solar eclipse in Leo. So let's see where we can, where to go from here. Let's see, I'll read a couple things I jotted down just to bring me into a different. Okay, so the real alchemy goes beyond what can be seen with the eyes. We romance and emotions and all of these things, we think that these things are the alchemy. they're the beginning of alchemy. Human love and romantic love and romance and all of this, it's the beginning. But the true alchemy that we're going to look at when we talk about connecting to the presence within, that Leo energy, the I am, happens in a really profound space of stillness. It's when we identify with our true inner self that we activate the inner plane and we begin to receive that stream. That's how the mother's core comes through us. The galactic core is in the sign of truth and justice and higher spiritual, Sagittarius, higher spiritual wisdom and understanding. The great, great sign of wisdom. She rules and is there. When we, okay, so these things, the tastes of romance and falling in love and sex, they give us a taste of that power. Every time we engage in them, we feel that power all over again. Like, let's say every time you fall in love, you get that. It's like we experience the power, falling in love, but falling in love, having sex with somebody new, a new thrill, a new lust, a new desire, a new fetish. They open that power and make it feel very real for us. But when it's not connected to the light of the sun, as is represented in Leo, it begins to fade and degenerate. And that's why we get love addiction. That's why we get sexual addiction. That's why we get addiction to drugs, to things that take us into that feeling of, it's so good. And I feel high again, and I feel aligned again, and I feel myself again. We have to we get the glimpse of feeling it when we fall in love, and falling in love is a big part of it. But when we have to keep doing it over and over again, we keep slipping back. Eventually we're all going to get to the deeper layers of the transmuting, but there's a way to engage it, that we grow from it and that we expand in our consciousness from it. That's what this eclipse is really opening the door for. It's also the secret powers, the power of emotions, the power of Venus, feeling and desire, and how the imagination. This is so great. How we have the Emperor energy over there with vision, trining the creative imagination, the energies of Leo and the secret force, working to create those that imagery through real vision of the presence of the power of the light within us, and to align it with the galactic core, the womb of the Great Mother, and now the contracting energies of Saturn that bring things into form. Saturn is there, and so Saturn with Lilith wants to bring in something powerful. We can bring in both the dark and the light at this eclipse, and it will happen. There will be both brought in. We will see, as always, the dark get darker and the light get lighter, and that's just part of what this world is all about right now. No more outsourcing our power. This is about, because we have Aries there, it's about the power of the individual and the I am. It's about understanding that we create our reality. So maybe I should take a breath and slow down a little bit and shift into how we do that. This archetype of Leo is connected to the archetype of passion and desire and the desire force. We use our passion by what we identify with. Whatever we identify with, our passion goes towards that. That's why passion gets a bad rap, because passion can take us down. It can take us down fast. I mean, when we see passion that is connected only to the lower five sensual pathways, that's when we see the carnal that devours us. That's when the lion turns on us and eats us. We want to talk about the archetype of Leo in strength, and that the archetype of the goddess walking with the lion, because it's huge. It's the power of the heart. And what we feel for, that's what we create. So whatever triggers us, whatever gets us going, whatever gets our goat, which is the energy of Capricorn and the devil, whatever gets us is what we begin to create. I'm going to take the time right now to talk about timelines, because I have something kind of cool to share. So I want to give you an example of how we create. This is we create, and I'm going to give you two personal examples that I experienced just recently. One today, one this morning, and one in the past couple weeks. And so, all right, we create our reality with what we're thinking and what we're feeling in every moment. The picture that's running through our mind, how we're feeling that picture, what we're identifying with. That is the power that we carry. It's huge. When we see something, when we feel it, when we know it, when we merge with it, we create it. So I'm going to give you an example this morning. This morning I went to the market and I wanted to pick up some flowers. And I walked in. I go to this market all the time, and I walked around and didn't really see anything that was calling out to my heart. I was thinking, oh, okay, I'll let something come to me. So then I saw some flowers that I did like, and I thought I thought about buying them, but I picked them up. I looked at them. I I I I just felt the energy of the whole situation and thought, you know what? I like these, but they're not quite right. And then immediately I had the vision of what was right. And I had the vision, but I knew I hadn't seen it. I had walked around the whole area where all the flowers were. But I was looking at these flowers, and I instantly thought about what I wanted. And I just kind of had a moment where I saw it happening. I saw exactly how many I wanted. I saw the exact color. I even saw kind of how they'd be packaged. And then I thought, well, these flowers that I'm holding in my hand aren't going to work. I don't see anything. Maybe I won't get flowers today, but I put them down and I walked around a little bit more. And I knew that I hadn't seen what came into my vision as I was walking around earlier, but I still had that vision and I wasn't going to settle for anything less than it. I had decided I might not get flowers today. All of a sudden, as I was beginning to walk away, something caught my eye and I looked over. And in this one pail of flowers, this bucket of flowers, all these other kind of flowers that didn't speak to me at all, I saw one flower peeking out behind, and it looked like the shape of the kind of flower I was looking for. And I walked over, but it was wrapped really funny. And so I couldn't see the whole flower, but I walked over and I kind of moved the other flowers aside. And sure enough, there was a bunch of these flowers. And I picked them up and I thought, wow, I had never even seen these flowers in this market before. And all of a sudden, I looked at it and thought, but I want a few more than this. I don't know if I'm just going to buy this bunch alone. And I looked down and it said, buy one, get one free. And I thought, well, there's only one bunch of these here. But I looked down again in the back, behind, all the way in the back of this bucket, the way it was situated, it was covered up with another bunch. And so I picked them up. They were in perfect condition. I looked at them, and I always love to look at flowers because there's such a with my makeup, I'm really sensitive to color, and the color usually has a message or there's some energy in it that connects with my heart. I felt it so strongly, and I didn't think a whole lot of it, but just thought, wow, I have the flowers I want. And so I walked away and I went to go pay for them. But as I was standing there, all of a sudden I realized I got the stream, the stream, it's always going, the downloads come. I got the very distinct message from within, from my own inner presence. This is how we are creating our reality. It seems impossible, but when we really, really think of something and we call it in like that, we alter the timeline. And so there's a lot of talk about timelines for this. There's a lot of meditations going on for this solar eclipse, a lot of unity meditations. There's meditations all around the world because this solar eclipse is known to be so powerful and such an energetic portal for a new beginning and for change and for all these things to come about. So this is what I wanted to say. So I was like, well, yeah, I know this to be true. Of course, I work with this wisdom, so I know it to be true. But there was that the logical part of my mind that thought, well, there are other people that went into putting those flowers there. There was a person, the florist who I know, who she ordered them. And then there was people who put them out there. There was a person who arranged them like that. All of that had to happen. So that was my analytical mind immediately gave me that. Like, yes, you manifested these, but this, and this had to happen. And then it came in with a flood timeline. Yes, but all of those timelines exist. This is really big. I mean, this is, you might not want to follow me here because it's pretty far out, but this is the depth of this, of what these portals are. And this is the depth of the secret power of the heart, the creative imagination, the ability to visualize, the sexual power is the light that creates through the creative imagination. It's the fire light. It is the light of this fire trine. That's the sexual force. So what I was shown, and I've received this before, but it was just so clear. Every individual person is creating timelines with every thought, quantum, on the quantum level, on the subatomic level of our cells and our inner life, the subatomic level. We are each moment. There's the potential to create what we desire. And sometimes we can do it easily. Sometimes it doesn't happen. You can think of huge things. We are in the world. There's always going to be the argument that yes, we are in 3D. We're in the world of form. We access the inner dimension to govern the world of form. And some things, God knows how they're going to happen, but we first have to get acquainted with the small things. And this was just the whole process of how it happened and how it was exact what I needed and no more. The 2 bunches of flowers that I needed, it was buy one, get one free, the exact color, hidden in the back. There were no other flowers like them. They came just like that. So this is the energy of this eclipse. And this is the energy of the creative imagination, which is ruled by Venus, but Venus transmits the power of Leo. All of this energy happening in Leo, this is what it's about. So that's, the other personal story is, I'll make this one quick. I was offered an opportunity to travel recently, and I thought, I don't know, this doesn't seem like the right situation. So many things weren't working out. It didn't feel right. I was going to have to sacrifice a lot to do this, to make this happen. And it was going to be a lot of work on my part. And I felt like it was going to end up taking away from certain things that I'm working on, that I had going on. So I was like, I don't think I'm going to do this. I'm going to pass on it. And all of a sudden, so then I detached from it. Oh, and that's the key I want to say. After I had that desire for the flowers, this is big. After I had the desire for it, I let it go. I surrendered to it. I didn't see the flowers I wanted. I had the vision of the ones I wanted to, but I just said, okay, I'm at peace with that. It's not going to happen. Not saying it's not going to happen in a negative way, but just releasing it. I released it. I completely let go. I had the vision, but then I surrendered it. In other words, I handed it over to the creative force within me. So what happened when I was thinking about this opportunity to travel, I decided to myself, no, I'm not going to do it, for all the reasons I just stated. And then I let it go. I was at peace with it. I just completely put it out of my mind. And all of a sudden, it's like a twinkle. It's like a spark of light. That's the light of consciousness in me, the way I experience it. It's always like, it's like a spark that comes in. It's like, it happens and it's effortless. That's another sign. It just like, it births. And there was just this light went on, and I thought, wait a minute. What if I just change my perception about this trip and embrace it as something that I will absolutely love and enjoy, and that everything that comes to me through this experience will enhance and nourish and empower the things that I'm working on right now on every level. This all happened really quick. But I was like, because it was going to benefit some other people. So there was that there. So that was part of the attraction to actually do it. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to try it. I got this information that I could shift my perception about it, change it, but change it in my mind, change what it is in my mind, and see myself turn it into, rather than work, turn it into pleasure, rather than work that I have to do, make it about, this is something I'm going to do that's just so pleasurable and that fills me up on every level. Well, long story short, I decided to go, I decided to travel, and it was absolutely beautiful. And everything that I thought originally might be challenging or take from turned and became something that gave. It just gave and gave and gave, and it's still giving. Um, and it didn't take energy. I wasn't fatigued. It didn't drain me in any of the ways I thought it would. In fact, it filled me on levels that I had not anticipated. So these are two examples. This is important because it's kind of an idea of how we change our timeline, shift in perception. And that's the esoteric meaning in Aries. The emperor rules vision and the light of the sun coming through the higher mind. The I am, it's the I am. And Leo is the I am as well, but Leo is how we run the I am through fertility, through sexuality, through lust, through desire. And so Aries is more about the head, Leo is about the heart. So there we have it. We've got the head in Aries, Aries rules the head. We've got the heart in Leo. We have the heart and the head. I just really landed that it on the deepest level. We've got them trining each other, and we've got power happening there, Uranus happening there. And we have it trining with truth and higher wisdom of Sagittarius. So I think I'm going to, okay, Mercury's retrograding. Mercury's retrograding back. Mercury's retrograding right now. Hope everything goes well on this video. It looks like everything's running okay. Mercury's in retrograde right now, and it's another example of how you can use the power of your mind. But we'll talk about that more later. That's a whole nother video by itself. The power of Mercury retrogrades and how we approach them. Mercury's coming back to the eclipse point. Oh, this is big. Okay, Mercury's coming back to the eclipse point. It's going to plant at 28 degrees of Leo after the eclipse, but it's going to be there, and it's going to rock that point, and it's going to rock that trine, and it's going to do alchemy of the mind. Mercury rules Virgo. It's in Virgo right now. It's coming back into Leo, but it's Mercury is the planet of alchemy. Mercury, in all the secret teachings, Mercury is alchemy. And so Mercury's getting in on this too, but it's getting in on it through a retrograde. There's a lot of planets in retrograde right now. We talked about those in the last video, so I won't go into all of that again. But Mercury is going to be alchemizing that point. And so these energies, as you can see, they're going to go on and on and on, because then Mars is going to transit over the eclipse point. When Mars goes over it, I don't know what the date is, but in somewhere into the near future, it will activate it. Venus will be coming from the water, the depths of the water sign in the mother in Cancer, ruled by the moon, into her love, into her divine love, the I am, the great Christ force of Leo. She'll be in the fire of Leo. She will go over the eclipse point. And all of these energies are activated by the Lionsgate portal as well. It's so big. It's the power of the heart, our power to feel. So the main, I'm going to go into a little bit more on sexuality, but I just want to say this is a new beginning of divine power. Knowing this whole next era, we're going to relearn sexuality. That's a big, big theme. And it's, if you follow my work, you know, well, I've been working and writing and teaching for years on sexuality. It's so big, but we've been like children in the sense that we have not been able to truly understand what it's about. We get lost in the five senses. We pedal way backwards, then we go forwards, but we haven't been able to quite get it. But the time is ripe now for us understanding what that is, how it plays out in relationships are huge in this next era that we're entering. The age of love, the age of Aquarius, is going to be about brotherly, sisterly love, the community, but also about the power of the heart and relationships. When we give our power away to these passions and they just go and go and go, our power is usurped. We don't have the real power of the goddess. We have a false kind of power that's just run by our appetites. Remember, these things are good when we know how to use them. It's not that they're bad, but we have higher faculties. And something else I'm just remembering. We have, there is a whole body of and community of light around us in the unseen, that is wanting to, a whole, our brethren, our higher brothers and sisters that have alchemized this already. They are waiting for each and every heart that opens. They hold the energy of the great central sun and of the galactic core. It's the great body of the ascended host, the communion of saints. It's that body of the higher light that was represented by the Christic force. That energy is alive and real. And when this process of alchemy is very exact. It's very exact. Now, there's many ways to get there. That's true. We're going to get there, and there's many different paths that all lead to one, but the actual stages of alchemy are very precise and very exact, meaning the frequencies and energies that happen, they are aligned with how we think and how we feel. We can't cheat this process. There's no way. I've been working with it long enough to know when I cheat myself, when my thoughts are off, my actions are off, great things, we go backwards, we lose things, and then we get them back. It's a process of learning, but just to be sure, make no mistake, this process is an exact divine science. So we have this community of light, of the beings and the guardians and those, however you think about it in your tradition, that are whispering in our ear. There's a great a beautiful writing about the masters calling back to us. It's not, these masters are us. They are nothing other than us in our awakened state. It's a part of us. This is about integrating the parts of our soul. And so the part that is here in this reality, in this timeline, when we begin to do what I'm going to talk about in just a moment, when we begin to relax and tune in to the inner and open the inner, there's a light inside us. Literally, it lights up the astral plane and it lights up the inner dimension of our being. We can't, until we've turned that light on, we can't see. If you can't see the inner plane, you might not have turned your light on yet. There's an inner plane that allows us to see. Now, the astral, as we know, the lower astral is filled with all kinds of stuff. But we're reaching into the higher astral, the higher regions of the heart, where we make connection with I am. All right. And where I was going with this is that it's available to us now. It's here. We don't have to wait for any aliens to set us free or any, I mean, there's certain things that are going to happen, but we don't have to wait for like anyone to land and tell us, okay, you're good now, you got it, you're liberated. Nobody's going to wave a magic wand and make everybody ascend. There is no magic wand that's just going to take away the process. We each have our own individual, it's a very individual thing that we planned. We each have our own process and we have to meet it. That is the thrill of being alive. It's the thrill. Our soul wouldn't have it any other way. Even amidst the pain and suffering of this reality, we want to play. We want to do this and we want to get it. We want to attain that wisdom, because what we will gain by having gone into the dark and coming out will allow us to create new worlds upon new worlds upon new worlds with new mythology and with new creations of our heart. All right, so there's also, okay, so I'm going to say a couple other things. There's a cardinal grand cross. There was a cardinal T-square, but we're really looking at the cross in terms of, we've talked all about it. Jupiter in Libra, Uranus in Aries, Pluto in Capricorn. And now I just want to touch on this because of Venus. Venus, this is really key because Venus entered into the T-square with Jupiter and Pluto in Libra and Capricorn. And it was exact just recently, just a few days ago, exact opposition to Pluto. Pluto is judgment in the archetypes, and Pluto represents the sexual transcendence of the sexual energy. Pluto is the archetype that teaches us how to turn raw power into spiritual power, into divine power, into truth. with a capital T. It will drag us through the depths of the dark. It will have its way with us, and it will, if we fall into complete lust, we're gone. We're going to get eaten alive in the underworld with Pluto. Pluto will love to. That's where humanity is right now, being eaten alive. Now we are awakening, but in the collective, there's so many things happening, that we're going to talk about more in the next video. Some of the darker things that are happening, I talk so much about them that I wanted to really stay as much as possible in the positive potential of this eclipse. So Venus moved into this. So Venus was alchemized there. She was in the depths of Cancer, in the Divine Mother, in the Chariot, and gathering her power, her strength, getting a reboot. She retrograded this year, huge retrograde, from Aries into Pisces. And now this is very similar. Now she's going from the depths of the water in Cancer into the fire sign of Leo, where she's going to cross over all these points and do beautiful creative imagination work for all of us that are aligned with that timeline and that potential. We can create what we want right now. So all right, there's also, it's conjunct the star Regulus. I didn't talk a lot about it, but that's the lion's heart. It's the warrior power of the divine, of the masculine. It can represent the war as well. The eclipse is conjunct the fixed star Regulus. So you might look up Regulus if you're interested in that. It's a huge energy, and it's a huge powerful fixed star. It's the heart of the lion and the roar of power, when power is used not just for love but for war and to get things done. It's that divine masculine power to get it done and to use our power. Beautiful that it's right there. All right, so now I'm going to move into, to finish this up. I planned this one for an hour, so this one is a little bit longer. So we're going to talk a little bit about we're going to talk about meditation and ways to connect with this presence, and ways to transmute the sexual force. So let me just think about this right now. How we can each transmute the sexual force is to bring consciousness together with our sexuality. All the work I do in the mentoring I do, and in Light Body Tantra, which is the body around the sexuality, healing sexuality and the sexuality of the goddess. It's so powerful what happens when we get it. Saturn represents time, and there's a saying, when the human being understands time, all miracles can happen. It's the most beautiful and glorious thing, because we are trapped in time. But when we understand time, and that's Saturn conjunct the galactic core, downloading that wisdom at the time of this eclipse, when we understand it, we get the beauty of the gifts of time. We get to learn how to use time. We get to, what Capricorn represents time as well. It's the devil, but what it represents in its higher light is how to bring spirit into form. It's the law of love, Capricorn. It's the 15 is divine alchemy. It's not just the patriarchy. It's not just the devil. It's not just bondage. In its light side, it is the true release of bringing spirit into matter, awakening the higher perception, and understanding the great and infinite law of love. So Leo also represents, by the figured 8, it represents in the infinite. So there's time and then there's infinity. When we merge time and infinity, which is happening in this eclipse, time stands still and there's a portal, and that's what's happening. So how do we do that? I'm going to give a quick little way how to do that. How do we receive discernment? How do we understand? Because we're receiving so many impulses by everything. All of the Uranus also rules technology, and so technology is sending us and beaming us, and then technology is used by the dark, and we all know that there's a matrix that's vibrating at a certain frequency that really we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this more. I don't want to go too much into it right now, but if you're sensitive and if you can feel it, you know it's there. It's muddling and of the mind. It muddles the mind. It blocks the heart. It does everything to stop humanity from awakening. We'll talk more about that later. What we can do right now, Meditate. First of all, meditate at the time of the eclipse. Just do it. I think 11:11 Pacific time is when I've seen many, many groups doing it. So Pacific time, California time. If you want to join the collective, I believe it's 11:11, which is great because the last full moon happened at 11:11. We talked about that. It's an ascension portal. But meditate at this eclipse. Use it. I forget the exact time, but it's not long after that. I think it's within 20 minutes after that. Meditate and do this. We have to reach our subconscious mind. And that's what the goddess represents when she's walking with the lion in the archetype for strength. She represents the power of the virgin, the purified subconscious mind, which is Virgo as well. We'll talk about that in the next video. When we go into our subconscious mind in a relaxed state, first of all, so I want you to write this word down: relax, relaxation. Relax is actually, when I do the Chaldean numerology, it's a 16, 2, 5, 3, 1, 5. It's a 16. So that shows right there, relax brings in the light of the Holy Spirit, which births the Christic force. Everything in this world, it's hard to relax and we don't even realize it. We do all this meditation, we go to yoga, we do meditation classes. We're trying so hard to meditate that we don't ever get to that place where we let down and relax. We let go, meaning we're just like okay with being where we are in the we are always the self. We have an external personality and identity, but we are never, ever, ever anything but the great self. The self with a capital S is our truth. It is our truth now. This is the final message for this video. I have to remember to say it. It's now. It's not any time in the future. It's not when we're saved. It's not when we ascend. It's not down the road. It's not when we finally get a new president. It's not when we, do this or do that. Our power of self is right now. You just have to be it and know it and come into sacred union with it. This whole eclipse is about sacred union with the self. In all of my years of working, in everything I've taught yoga, all kinds of meditation, studied Tantra, Kabbalah, all the esoteric teachings, all the Gnostic wisdom, all of it. It's been, I've been on this path my entire life, read over 1,000 books, maybe thousands. I don't know. There was a time when I used to read a book a day for years. So there's all different kinds of techniques. But one thing I've found, and I know for sure now in my own life, if you're in your head and you're thinking, you won't do it. You can't do it. I mean, you can use a mantra to focus your power and to bring you into, help you hold that alignment, but you have to be completely dropped in and relaxed. I find nature and sitting and observing nature can do that. It's a way that I can access it. I'm so trained to access it that way, that when I sit with nature and I don't think about anything, but I just watch the symphony of the birds, the wind, the tree, the leaves falling down from the trees, the sunlight shining through the trees, the chipmunks and the squirrels running in the grass, fighting the bird feeder for eating the bird seed from the birds, watching this whole divine play of nature happening. When I'm not thinking about it, just watching it, all of a sudden I let down. And it is always in that moment when the flood of love comes in. That is our divine self. And we get it right before we fall asleep. We get it when we wake up, before we become fully conscious, before we join this world and start thinking. That is when we are merging with our inner God, with our subconscious. And that is when we can work this alchemy. Now, the reason we have to transmute the sexual force is because it's the sexual force that feeds that power, that she governs that power. I mean, that's her power. She has all the say over that power. We have to get really familiar with her and know her and respect her and love her and accept her in our relaxed state, for our heart to open. The heart doesn't open when we're in passion. This is tricky, and of course you could come up with an argument for it, but there is a truth behind this. When we're in lust, when we're in desire, when we're in too much pleasure, we go into a pleasure principle that's not the heart. It's different. It's a different principle. When we're too locked into lust, we can't be in our heart. I'm not going to say much more about that right now, but that's why it's so important in Leo to open the heart and to know that feeling of unity. Unity consciousness is of the heart. So I didn't come up with I'm just going to say, relax, pretend that you're going to sleep, but make an intention. If you're not familiar with meditating, lie back and just get comfortable, like you're going to relax. Let yourself let down. Practice it until you no longer have your list of things to do. You have to really let yourself know, I'm just going to go to sleep. I'm just going to enjoy. That's why it's connected with bliss. Just enjoy and be. And your breath will change, and your heart rate will change, and you will come closer to sacred union than you have ever been. When you think you're fighting, when you think you're being a warrior, when you think you're going at it, when you think you're in polarity and the light fighting the dark and the dark fighting the light, that's all good. That's happening. However, the ones who walk into that place with this turned on, with the heart turned on, as I always see in this image, aren't going to have to do a whole lot. The presence alone becomes the stream of healing. Each and every one of us can become that stream, and we can become that stream now. It's right now. You can, because this eclipse, I'm so connected with this eclipse. My life has gone through one transformation after another since 2012. I mean, my whole life has been transformation, but the things that are so big that I literally have been blown away that so much could happen in such a short time. In those moments, I wonder, can I keep it, is this path still happening? It's in those moments of the most chaos, the most dark, the most limitation, that you can access it the most. The most. Truly, don't say when I get healthy. Don't say when I get out of this relationship. Don't say when I finally make money. Don't say when my bills are paid off. Don't say when Donald Trump's no longer president. Don't say when the earth is healed or the earth is better. It's now. That timeline, like we talked about, is now. It's right, just like was shown in a couple of those examples. That the pleasure and the beauty are created right now in this moment. And so that's all. I just want to wish everybody a happy eclipse. This information is good, even beyond this eclipse. We'll look back at this video in a year and see what has happened during this time. I always love to do that. So thank you for joining me. Thank you to all the subscribers, and subscribe to the channel. If you like this, I'm going to be posting regular videos. Leave comments. If you're seeing this and it's not during the live stream, please leave comments. Come back and leave comments if you want to, but tell me what you're doing at the eclipse. Tell me what happens at the eclipse. Tell me what planets you've got going on, and let's share some stories and see how this is playing out for humanity. And remember, fall mentoring for anyone who's really interested in this wisdom and feels like it's the right time to work with it in a very personal one-on-one way. You can find me at artofthefeminine.com. And so I send out huge blessings to each and every heart. Every person in this world is divine, even the darkest of the dark. Start to know the world that way. Start to see it, and the dark will disarm and dissolve before your eyes. And so many blessings and huge amounts of love until we meet again.